The truth, when it came, hit Shi Hengyi not as a gentle revelation, but as a violent, shattering blow. It arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning, masquerading as a simple phone call, yet it stripped away years of her unwavering devotion, laid bare the raw, ugly truth of her son's indifference, and carved a chasm of betrayal that felt too deep to ever bridge. She had merely picked up the phone, a mother's routine gesture, intending to ask her son, Max, about a joyful milestone, his wedding. The words that followed, delivered with a chilling smile by his new wife, Lena, were a dagger twisted in Shi Hengyi's heart. "Oh, we already got married yesterday," she cooed, her eyes gleaming with a malicious sweetness. "We only invited special people. Special people." The phrase echoed in the sudden cavernous silence of Shi Hengyi's own living room, each syllable a heavy stone dropped into a cold, dark well. It hit her like a bucket of ice water, not just cold, but stinging, shocking, special people. And Shi Hengyi, the woman who for 3 painstaking years had been their unwavering anchor, their silent provider, their personal bank, was not among them. For 3 years, without fail, Shi Hengyi had paid their monthly rent of $500, ensuring a roof over their heads when they couldn't afford one themselves. Every single piece of furniture that adorned their home, from the worn armchair to the gleaming dining table, had been bought with Shi Hengyi's hard-earned money, a gift given out of love, never obligation. And countless times, when their refrigerator stood barren and their cupboards empty, it was Shi Hengyi who had quietly, without a word of complaint, filled it with groceries, ensuring they had food to eat. Yet in Lena's chilling calculus, Shi Hengyi's unconditional love and relentless support rendered her less than special. Shi Hengyi stood there, phone clutched in her hand, its familiar weight suddenly unbearable, as if it had transformed into a 1,000-pound anvil, dragging her down. Her gaze searched for Max, her only son, hoping for some flicker of explanation, a sign of remorse, but he merely averted his eyes, retreating into a cowardly silence. Meanwhile, Lena, the architect of this cruel deceit, made herself perfectly comfortable on the very sofa Shi Hengyi had purchased for them, her posture radiating a victorious disdain. In Shi Hengyi's closet, hanging uselessly, was the pale pink dress she had carefully selected, the new shoes she had bought to complete the outfit, and the fragile illusion of being an integral part of the most important day of her only son's life. She had spent a considerable $200 on that dress, imagining how lovely she would look in Max's wedding photos, snapshots of a joyous occasion in which she would now never appear. For weeks, she had meticulously planned every detail, saved every penny. She had put aside $1,000, a significant sum from her modest means, intended as their wedding gift, a gesture of boundless love. She had excitedly called her sister Diana in Chicago, eager to share the wonderful news, dreaming of her visit. She had even cleaned her house from top to bottom, preparing for a post-ceremony celebration, a quiet family gathering that would now never happen. All of it, every dream, every plan, every shred of hope, collapsed in a single agonizing second with those 4 poisoned words: only special people. Max finally lifted his gaze, meeting Shi Hengyi's for a fleeting moment, but his eyes were devoid of genuine emotion. He spoke, his voice sounding oddly rehearsed, almost like an actor delivering a line. "Mom, it was an intimate thing, very small, just the 2 of us and the witnesses." But Shi Hengyi knew, with a certainty that churned in her gut, that it was a blatant, unforgivable lie. The digital world, with its cruel transparency, had already laid bare their deceit. Shi Hengyi had seen the photos on social media, a vibrant, joyful album of the very event she had been excluded from. She saw Lena's parents, beaming with pride, posing proudly next to the bride and groom. She saw her siblings, clinking champagne glasses, their laughter ringing through the celebratory air, and she saw Lena in her pristine white wedding dress, a garment Shi Hengyi had unknowingly helped finance with the $800 she had given her just last month for her personal expenses. Shi Hengyi saw everything she wasn't supposed to see, every piece of evidence of their deliberate, calculated exclusion. The pain was not just from the oversight. It was from the intentional humiliation, the public declaration that Shi Heng-yi, his mother, was utterly dispensable. The cost of neglect. A week later, precisely 7 agonizing days after that profound humiliation, Shi Heng-yi's phone rang. It was Lena, but her voice was starkly different, stripped of its former confidence and malice. No longer the self-assured woman who had so readily excluded Shi Heng-yi, she now sounded desperate, almost pleading. Shi Heng-yi, she began, her voice quivering slightly. The rent is overdue. The landlord is pressuring us and says if we don't pay this week, he will kick us out. You forgot to make the transfer. Her tone was laced with an urgency, an almost theatrical panic, as if the world itself were crumbling around her. Shi Heng-yi remained silent for a few seconds, the receiver heavy against her ear, a whirlwind of memories flashing through her mind. She remembered all the times she had dropped everything, cancelling her own plans, to rush to the bank and make that transfer, ensuring they always had a roof over their heads. She recalled the quiet sacrifices, the countless evenings she had eaten simple beans and rice, stretching her meager budget so she could give them money for their extravagant desires, their impulsive whims. And now, after they had so cruelly and deliberately excluded her from the most important moment of their lives, they had the unmitigated audacity to call her, demanding her help as if nothing had happened, as if their betrayal had never occurred. Lena, Shi Heng-yi said, her voice remarkably calm, a tranquility that surprised even her. Didn't I warn you that I only help special people? The silence on the other end of the line was immediate and profound, so deep that Shi Heng-yi could hear the steady, strong beat of her own heart. For the first time in years, it was not Shi Heng-yi who was trembling, but Lena. Shi Heng-yi, I don't understand, she stammered, her voice thick with a sudden, forced vulnerability. We were always special to you. You're like a second mom to me. Lies. All of it. A convenient, manipulative tapestry of lies, wrapped in that saccharine sweet voice she only ever used when she needed something from Shi Heng-yi. It was the same deceptive voice she had employed to ask Shi Heng-yi for money for the wedding dress, for the honeymoon, for the rings, all of which Shi Heng-yi had helped finance, never once suspecting that she would be barred from witnessing the very ceremony where they were exchanged. For so many years, Shi Heng-yi had lived with this constant, debilitating feeling of walking on eggshells, meticulously weighing every word, every gesture, every gift, desperately hoping to elicit even a single crumb of genuine affection from her own son. She had molded herself into the role of the perfect mother, the obliging mother-in-law, the silent provider who never dared to protest when they treated her as though she were invisible, a mere shadow in their lives. But that phrase, only special people, had struck a chord deep within Shi Heng-yi, awakening something that had been dormant for far too long. A cold, hard anger began to simmer beneath the surface, a sense of quiet indignation. Shi Heng-yi began to calculate in her head, the numbers accumulating with painful clarity, revealing the full extent of her foolish generosity over those 3 years. Between their monthly rent, the endless groceries and supplies, the birthday and Christmas gifts, the emergencies, and the seemingly endless stream of whims, the total had swelled to well over $20,000. $20,000, a significant chunk Shi Heng-yi had painstakingly taken from her carefully guarded retirement fund, from her life's savings, from the money her late husband had left her so she could live her final years in peace and security. And what, Shi Heng-yi asked herself, was all that sacrifice for? To be treated like an unwelcome stranger on her own son's wedding day. That night, after she finally hung up the phone, Shi Heng-yi sat on her bed, the weight of everything pressing down on her, and she cried. But these were not the usual tears of sadness or self-pity that had so often marked her quiet moments. No, these were tears of pure, unadulterated anger, of accumulated frustration, of years of silently endured humiliation, finally boiling over. She cried for all the times they had made her feel that her boundless love was a burden, her comforting presence a hindrance, her money the only thing she had left to offer. She cried for the foolish mother she had been, for the woman who had utterly lost herself, desperately trying to be indispensable to those who clearly considered her utterly dispensable. The awakening. When Shi Hengyi woke up the next morning, something profound had shifted within her. It wasn't merely the familiar sting of betrayal, it was something far deeper, colder, and undeniably resolute. She rose from her bed and walked to the bathroom mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. The same tired eyes looked back at her. The same wrinkles etched stories of years spent giving love without receiving it in return. But there was something new in her gaze, a nascent hardness Shi Hengyi didn't immediately recognize, a steely determination that had been buried under decades of compliance and self-sacrifice. She went to the kitchen and made coffee, a ritual she had performed every morning for over 40 years. But this time, a curious emptiness settled where the usual impulse to call Max and ask about his night had been. Shi Hengyi didn't check her phone in anxious anticipation of a message from him, an apology for the previous day's crushing humiliation. For the first time in a very long time, Shi Hengyi was her own primary concern of the day, her own needs, her own peace, her own future. She sat at the familiar kitchen table, the very spot where she had so often meticulously planned surprises for them, carefully counted out bills for their expenses, and silently cried into her hands when they treated her with indifference. Now, this table would bear witness to something entirely different, something transformative. Shi Hengyi pulled out her checkbook, her bank statements, and began to do the math, determined to see in exact, unassailable numbers the full extent of her own foolishness. The monthly rent of $500 multiplied by 36 months totaled a staggering $18,000. Food and supplies at an approximate $200 a month added another $7,200. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, anniversary gifts, those unspoken tokens of affection easily amounted to at least $3,000 over the years. Lena's seemingly endless medical emergencies had cost Shi Hengyi $800. The car loan they had never bothered to pay her back, $2,500. The air conditioner repair in their apartment, another $600. And the living room furniture, the very sofa Lena had draped herself upon just yesterday, had been. That was the precise, brutal sum of Shi Hengyi's generosity, her unwavering support, her naive belief in their love. $33,400 Shi Hengyi had foolishly squandered from her late husband's inheritance, from her hard-earned pension, from the savings she had meticulously put aside penny by penny over decades of honest, diligent work. All that money flung out the window just to keep two fully capable adults comfortable, adults who couldn't even manage to pretend to respect Shi Hengyi. Phone rang, breaking the silence of the kitchen, and she saw Max's name flash on the screen. Normally, her heart would have pounded with a mixture of hope and anxiety, and she would have rushed to answer, praying he would finally apologize, explain everything away as a misunderstanding. But this time, she let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, it fell silent, and she continued to drink her coffee, the warm liquid a testament to her newfound calm, as if nothing had happened. 10 minutes later it rang again. This time it was Lena. Shi Hengyi let that ring too. Then a text message popped up from Max. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." Shi Hengyi simply deleted the message without even a flicker of hesitation, without replying. Reclaiming my life's blueprint. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, Shi Hengyi decided to go for a walk. It was a simple act, yet one she hadn't done in months without a specific purpose, without an errand inextricably linked to Max and Lena. It was always the bank for transfers, the supermarket to buy them something they urgently needed, the pharmacy for Lena's latest medications. But today, Shi Hengyi walked purely because she wanted to, for herself.